Welcome to Making Martech, where we spotlight innovative Martech companies and leaders who are driving growth, highlighting valuable insights and actionable strategies to stay ahead in this industry. Today, we are here with Daniel Perlaky, Vice President of User Experience at Service Direct.
So thanks for having me. I appreciate it. It's always good to have these conversations. I always learn a lot too. But yeah, so just a little backstory. So originally I'm from Budapest, Hungary, where all my family lived. So then when the Berlin Wall fell, my parents were in the medical field. We were able to kind of leave. And that was the first time you could really leave the country and stay. So my dad had gone to various, because he's doing cancer research. So he had been around the world. But as a family, we finally left when I was around 10 or 11 and moved to Houston, where there's a big medical center. And that's where my parents work. So I went for middle school and high school there. And that was kind of like the big America revealed. And then I went to college at UT Austin, which at the time was like a sleepy college town and also the capital of Texas. So there was this weird mix of old school Texas politics and like very freewheeling, like hippie arts music scene. And then of course the academic institution. So I did journalism there and focused a lot on visual communication and design thinking and photojournalism. So I thought I was going to be a photojournalist and working for magazines, which I did for a while, but then I saw the writing on the wall and next thing you know, like that entire industry is collapsing. And I think one of the things that really I held on to from journalism school was the ability to go figure stuff out and go figure out what the story is, who are the pieces, the players, who's bullshitting you, who's not, what are they hiding, and then try to dig up some level of truth. And that's been something that has applied for everything in my career since then. Even though I didn't really practice journalism traditionally, I got really involved in wanting to start my own company. So my last year of college, I convinced my professors to basically not be in traditional college and instead make our own class. So it was myself and I found a couple of professors to be the sponsor of it. And the idea was could you generate your own clients? And my grade would depend on whether I could successfully get clients and deliver design work or whatever photo work to them. So that really broadened out what I was able to do and willing to do. And I realized there's so many people need so many different things and it's all pretty interesting. So I just started my own little design agency pretty much that last year of college. And that's essentially what I've done until now. Although Service Direct is full-time. So at Service Direct, I'm a VP of experience and design and creative essentially. So I kind of cross between different departments. Mostly I'm one of the leaders in the product team and then also in the marketing team. But with our customer support team and pretty much across the industry or across the company, experience is something that we all participate in and touches all of our lives. So it's really interesting to be able to work on all the different aspects. And we're a 30-person company, but we've been around for almost 20 years now. So we've been pretty battle tested and have grown to really become experts in the pay-per-call space, which for those who don't know, it's really about generating, incoming phone calls of customers who are ready to buy. And so normally that would be for local service providers. And we've got thousands of clients all across the country and some in Canada. So if you're somebody looking for air conditioning or a physical therapist or whatever, you're going to be looking locally to you. And we are able to, through our technology and our platform, help our clients who are these businesses find access to customers who are ready to call them, which is very different than trying to sell a book of leads to someone because really it's that moment of someone's ready to buy and now you as the business can convince them that maybe you're the right fit. So our technology is essentially like a marketplace where we're connecting those two sides. There's people who have access to generate good quality leads and they need someone within, milliseconds essentially to be routed to a potential buyer. So our system is able to do all that behind the scenes and connect those two parties pretty seamlessly. And then the pay-per-call part of it is that our clients are able to essentially pay for these good quality leads and then they can also dispute if sometimes leads can slip through that are not good quality. And it could be because it's spam or a wrong number or various reasons. So we're always trying to figure out ways to limit the bad leads and, enhance the good leads. And that makes both sides of the marketplace happier. So we're pretty agnostic. What we care about is getting as many good leads as possible into the hands of the companies that work with us. Yeah, so it's interesting to work in software technology, and most of my background had been in creative industries. Like I worked a ton in the music scene, especially in Austin. So I had a record label there and lived out a whole separate life of doing music concerts and touring the country and playing in bands and, putting out indie records. And that sucked me into the film world, because ultimately there was a director who reached out and wanted to feature me in a documentary about the music scene in Austin. So then I ended up really getting involved through that and became a producer on it and got open to a whole world of independent filmmaking. And we ended up making a movie called Ecotone that's still available out there. And it was basically about what happens to a city when you make it so cool that you can't afford to live there anymore. And that's a very universal story that's happened in a ton of places, but it was happening in Austin very obviously and viscerally right at the time that we were filming. There's even some cool scenes where we have some abstracted classical music overlaid on top of these sped up shots of cranes in downtown Austin, where at one point there was 20 cranes going at the same time with the level of building, and everyone would come during South by Southwest or Austin City Limits and fall in love with the vibe and the lifestyle, and then they'd want to move there. But what happens when that city starts to change so rapidly and it's not quite ready for it, oftentimes that level of gentrification can push out the artistic community. And then the very thing that made it so cool becomes almost unsustainable. So a lot of the music people I knew had moved on to other cities. And when I first lived there, you could basically get by working 1 or 2 days a week and then focus your life on your creative pursuits. And that's what created that hotbed. And also it was a kind of place where people intermingled a lot. So it felt like you were really running that town because it was still small enough.
Right.
And that created a lot of overlap where musicians could work in multiple bands and you never knew which one was going to become super successful. And a lot of it was just done for the pure love of it. So experiencing what it was like to live in Austin during the heyday of it is something that I'll hold on to forever. But essentially I started splitting time between Austin and LA because of all the film stuff that I was doing. Right. So one day a friend and I, who actually is one of the co-founders of Service Direct, he came to visit me in LA and we took a road trip to go surf up and down the coast down through Baja. So we ended up going to Mexico and staying for a while, and we met a bunch of different people along the way, and I got introduced to San Diego. So that's what really changed my whole life. All of a sudden I was I'm moving. I just need to have a surf centric life. I'm going to surf every day. And so that's what I'm doing now. During that time, he and I reconnected, and it was a perfect time for me to get involved with Service Direct. So they had already been operating for 8 years by that point, and now I've been there for 8 years. So it's really cool to have built something together like that you can really see the difference between where you started and where you are now, and all the challenges that have happened along the way, and really respecting the people that you work with, because you know that you're small enough to where you really impact somebody else's life. And these are people you now really care about. And I think that's a big difference between some of the more corporate environments that I've seen, where it seems like a lot of people are kind of job hopping, or they're wanting a certain title, and pretty quickly they're already out the door rather than really investing in the company that they're with. And I think that can kind of hurt your spirit a little bit. For me, it's really important that it matters what I do. And yes, it is corporate work to a degree, but it has that artistic soul to it and that ability to impact. So I think that kind of creates purpose. So in between all the artistic stuff and the surfing, I find purpose in a kind of corporate, but very independent and startup feeling company that we've built.
Wow. Okay. So now I'm seeing that you have a really big creative background here. So How are you reading that carry into your role at Service Direct? How does that influence what you do?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting topic that I've thought about a lot of how do you bring that type of creativity to some place that's very logical. And I've always liked to balance the creativity and the logic side of things. And I think they both have a lot of value. And I often think of how my dad approached it. So he was doing cancer research, but some of his best ideas came from out of left field. And part of it was because he was willing to challenge himself to think differently. And there's various exercises you can do to try to create that feeling. So I try to hold on to that. But yeah, I think when we think about creativity, sometimes people think about the work that they want to do, like their own personal artistic brand onto something. And I think that has its time and place. But when I think about what we do for Service Direct or any of my other corporate clients in the past, it's really not about me. It's about, can I bring a way of thinking to what the client ultimately needs? And can we as a company figure out what that is? Because as cool as you think whatever you're making is, at the end of the day, most people that are using your product or your service, they just want to go about their damn life. Like they don't care like how cool you think it is.
Right.
And they certainly don't want to live in your artistic vision necessarily. What they want is to be able to execute the tasks that they're doing. And then, whatever is important in their life, they have time to do because you've enabled that. So I often think about it as like these feelings of delight is how I describe it. And sometimes it can be the opposite. Like if you prevent a really shitty experience from happening, that is a kind of delight where you're like, the user doesn't even notice it really because we didn't annoy them or we didn't give extra steps that they didn't really want. But, you think about like whenever you use something and you have that feeling of, like that was easy, that is a kind of creative pursuit. And yes, it's not like in your face artistic, but that seamless feeling of getting something done for someone, that I think is a kind of art form that I think is fun to play in. And it's something that we challenge ourselves with a lot, which means we have to listen to our customers a lot and try to empathize. Because I've done a lot of like guest lectures and things like that at universities. And one of the core things that I think is a theme is it's a superpower to have empathy for who your users are. And you don't really think of them as a number or as a user, but as individuals who are doing something. And sometimes they're doing things very illogically to you. But if you walk in their shoes and you really listen to what they are thinking and feeling, then you can design things and experiences that match those. And I think that's an incredibly creative pursuit. It is a kind of like painting or music. It's just done with, software or technology.
That's a really interesting tie-in. In terms of the customers themselves, I know you mentioned that you guys have a platform, right? Does Service Direct actually go and provide the leads? Or does it focus on specifically being the technology that connects the sellers to the buyers?
Yeah, so both, but primarily we are the marketplace that connects those two sides. So it's really about the technology underneath it all. And obviously there's a phone call technology, and then there's a lot of customized software that we build to enable that marketplace exchange to happen. Because essentially you've got the buyers who are willing to pay X amount in their location for a given campaign. And maybe that changes even by the hours. So they might want to control their schedule, or they might want to pause their campaigns and maybe at other times they need more leads, so they want to pay more and they want to know how to be more competitive in the marketplace. And that's a very dynamic thing that's happening. So the software needs to be able to interpret that and then create solutions on that side. And similarly, that same buyer, they need to actually take an action. So we need to make that as fluid as possible. Like once the lead comes in, it needs to feel like basically all they have to do is pick up the phone. So they don't need to be interacting with our software at all in order to access the leads. And then we have the lead sellers, and those are people who maybe you have a web platform where you can generate a ton of traffic, but you don't really know what to do with that traffic. So ultimately, the person who's coming to your site, if they want to take action, then we enable that process to get connected to someone that can help them with whatever they need. And then doing that across the country and doing it in real time is the challenge underneath the hood of all of it. But we also do have our own web properties where we can generate traffic as well. So we've seen so much with, search engine optimization and search engine marketing for how to connect with people who are looking for something in real time and then find a solution that matches them. And obviously we can't find a solution all the time, but our goal is to enable a local service provider and a local person seeking a service to meet, and with almost not knowing at all that we're involved.
I think the best part about this is that this really goes down to everyday people, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And what's cool is no one needs to log into anything. No one needs to sign up for anything. Oftentimes it's people who have an immediate need. And really what they care about is solving that immediate need and that human to human connection, where instead of filling out a form or going through a bunch of computerized technologies, they need to talk to someone and then get on the same page and ideally get that problem solved. Obviously, there's a lot of seasonality to all this stuff. Like if there's a natural disaster, for example, like that can spike needs extremely, right? And there's a person at the end of that situation where from our perspective, we need to help those people access the support that they need. And, we're not like the Red Cross or anything, but there is like a job of, or a feeling of satisfaction knowing that we did connect two parties. And we're not only helping grow small businesses who are out there providing these services, but we're helping people have less of a headache and solve their problem with someone local that they can trust. And I think for the best clients that we have, they're really good at creating a long-term relationship from that point on with those customers. So it's really on them. And we've done a bunch of studies on what makes someone successful in our marketplace. And one of the core takeaways is, can you pick up the phone quickly? And then once you actually do that, which you'd be surprised, everyone says they pick up the phone 100% of the time, but actually it's way lower than that. And we've done some pretty cool white papers that are available out there for these research studies. But basically, if you can consistently and quickly answer the phone and then have really good rapport once you're on the phone, then your next step is going to be book that appointment. And from there, that lifetime value of that customer could be really long. Like if you're good at what you're offering, then now you might have a customer for life. And that's a pretty cool thing.
All about delivering value.
Absolutely. Yeah. And doing it honestly and authentically. I think a lot of people try to get away with things and spend as little as possible and then try to, kind of hoodwink the system. But that's not what I see as successful.
Yeah, no, I agree with you there. I know you mentioned that you've done studies about your customers, about what makes these businesses successful. What else have you seen?
Yeah, I think that the common courtesy that once someone's on the phone to be able to like not just try to immediately sell them something, but really understand and empathize what it is that they need. And it may not be you that needs to provide that service. And it's okay to spend some time with that customer because maybe they'll come back to you for something entirely different. Or maybe they came to you with something, but you were able to understand their needs more holistically and then offer something else. So I think the people who do the best are the ones who can really engage with that customer and understand their need and kind of pull it out of them, because the customer won't always tell you right away what it is. So it's going to take someone who specializes in that part of that phone conversation. And I know from myself, whenever I call a service provider, I'm essentially judging them based on that, because it's the first real impression that you have of how they're going to treat you. And it goes way beyond that first sales call. And if they can't even get that first sales call right, I'd be concerned about what else are they cutting corners on. And then the other thing I would say is you need to invest in your own business. Like I think sometimes people want to get away with spending as little as possible, but we're talking about value and how much return on investment there is. So sometimes they look at how much a call costs, and then they're like, oh, I can't believe I would spend that much. But you have to frame that in, well, what's the return that I can generate on that? And so everything has either a cheap or very expensive valuation to it, depending on that framework. And I think that the small businesses who, let's say they're a plumbing company and they've got like 10 or 15 trucks out there, maybe they have a marketing person, maybe they don't, but it's the ones who can understand the return on investment and track that. They see the value really clearly, and we don't even have to try to explain it to them. So the ones that are willing to spend a little extra time in our platform, like on the client side, they can really track that stuff. And for every call that comes in, they're able to show what happened in that situation. Did they book the appointment or not? And they get data based on that. So you can really kind of stress test your own organization based on that information. But I think a lot of people get overloaded with data and know what to do as far as the action at the end of all that data. So it just looks like a bunch of numbers. So I think ones who can look at data and interpret it and see return on investment, they're the ones that are going to be taking market share. And I think that's exciting to see those guys grow.
So actually, just talking about that, I noticed that Service Direct came out with this new health dashboard.
Yeah, exactly. So how we were talking about there's buyers and sellers in this marketplace. So the sellers are people who have web properties, and we call those affiliates. Sometimes they're called publishers or whatever, but essentially that side of the marketplace now has its own software platform that we've built, and it's called the Affiliate Insights platform. So it's very similar to the client side, but mainly focused on this affiliate lead seller network. And they have totally different needs. Like what an affiliate needs to see to perform better is very different than what the buyers need to see. So this health dashboard is an at-a-glance view of how healthy are the leads that you're sending through our system. So when you're sending all these calls into our marketplace, what ultimately ended up happening? Like, were we able to find a buyer for it? Or did they even make it through a zip code prompt or something like that? There could be a technical issue that you'd want to surface and then fix. Or maybe like, was there a service need? So yes, maybe they picked up the phone and we were able to sell that call, but was there a service need at the end of it? Because that's ultimately what the client cares about. So we need to tell that story and then help both sides improve. So this health dashboard is giving them actionable data about that. And the ones who really take the time to dig in, they can improve the quality of the leads that they're sending us, and then we can pay more for them. So ultimately, it's like a win-win for everyone. And it was kind of interesting that when we first went down this road, it was very few amount of transparency in the marketplace. Like people didn't want to share information like what we're sharing with our affiliates. And I don't know why that really is, because if we share this data and positive action is taken, everyone wins. So why wouldn't you want to do it? But it definitely took us a lot of effort, and we're just at the beginning stages of it. But it's gotten a lot of attention because it's just different than what's out there in the marketplace in the paper call space. And I think that we're going to continue to double down on giving people this type of data and working together. Like we think of it as a partnership, even though we're kind of the silent partner behind the scenes and we're making the technology work. For us, like if we can help our affiliates get better and we can get our clients to be better, everyone wins. So that's the goal.
So I know you mentioned that you guys also build custom AI into your stack. So how is that in play with the health dashboard? Are you using that to extract insights from the data?
Oh yeah, for sure. Because obviously when calls come in, they are of varying quality. And one of the things that is a big headache for our buyers is they don't want to pay for calls that are not legitimate, right? And things like wrong number and spam, those are the more common types. But there's also things like, what if a person who's looking for a service calls the same phone number back? And so that would be a repeat caller. Would we charge or not, right? And so we have various rules in place of how and when do we charge our clients for those calls. And one of the things we want to make easier is for that process to where the clients don't have to submit leads for review. So that means somehow we have to get up in front of it. And we have a combination of the AI technology and the software that we've written and we're continuing to write of how do you identify whether a call was a spam or a wrong number. And it's way harder than it sounds, but the AI tech has really come a long way in the last few years to where it's really like usable now. So we're going to continue to build on that tech stack. But also we have an amazing quality assurance team, and their whole job is to listen to these calls. So obviously we're trying to randomize which calls we listen to and how quickly we can listen to them. Because if we can invalidate wrong leads before our clients even know that they happened, then that's the ideal situation. But there's no way, with many, many thousands and thousands of leads coming in, like sometimes per hour, thousands and thousands of leads, it's really not something that humans can keep up with. We would never be able to listen to 100% of the calls. So we need our technology to invalidate the easiest low-hanging fruit, but then also maybe start flagging ones that it's not sure about. So the AI needs to learn which ones to flag. And then our humans can spend more time on that side of things. And we've done the same with customer support. Like everyone's heard of agent chatbots who are trying to help you find solutions. And obviously we're doing those things too. But what we've seen is the more we can help people help themselves, whether it's through an AI bot or we have an online onboarding academy type setup that lets people really get the hang of the system, we've noticed that our support team can focus on the stuff that really matters, that's like best done by a human and best done person to person. So our clients are happier because of it. Yeah. And then lastly, the AI tech of how much to bid and when to bid, that's a very complex system because you've got all these calls coming in from all over the place. And because it's a marketplace, there's different active participants who are bidding to try to access that call. And they're working against each other, of course, because in a given zip code, you might have a lot of competition or you might have none. And depends on the certain time of day or maybe the certain month. So our system needs to identify what would be an appropriate amount to bid to that call on behalf of our clients.
It's like Facebook Marketplace for leads, right?
Yeah.
So you've got clients on both ends of this, right?
Mm-hmm.
In terms of these clients, where do you actually end up finding them?
Yeah, we have a sales team and they do outbound, but there's also a ton of activity in different conventions that are out there. And I think because of some of the more recent legal rulings about forms and consent and that sort of thing, I think pay-per-call has come into the foreground even more than it has been. We've always pretty much almost exclusively focused on pay-per-call. And I think we've become known as the leaders in that space for that reason. But now that there's a lot more focus put on pay-per-call, I think it's becoming a hot thing. So people are coming to us. And also we have people who are reaching out to small business type clients and selling them on our platform on the client side. And then we've got on the affiliate side for the lead sellers, we're looking for really good publishers who have awesome web properties that they can generate quality traffic to. So we have two separate teams working on those two sides of it. And then we also now are doing a ton of stuff with enterprise. So these are like big nationwide companies who have a bunch of different cities and their needs are totally different than what a normal client buyer's needs are. And so that has its own marketing and sales funnel. And the product that we make is essentially in these three big groups now. So we got the side, the affiliate side, and now this enterprise side.
In terms of the trends that you're seeing right now, are you seeing a lot more new clients just coming in out of interest into pay-per-call now that it's kind of coming into the foreground? Or are you still focusing on outbound yet?
No, we have a ton of signups that find us. And I think we're trying to educate people on what pay-per-call is and why it works and all that. So that's why on the marketing side, we have these white papers and research studies and things like that where we can add some value into the space because there's a ton of data that we see in the interactions that our clients are having on the phone. And obviously we can organize that data into something meaningful and share something with the community. So that's actually resulted in a ton of interest because of that. So we have an active blog, we have some social content, and we're just trying to get people to understand the benefits of this pay-per-call system and why it's so different than buying leads. Because essentially, like, if someone sells you a book of leads, most of those are dead leads by the time they get to you. And I think a lot of customers, like clients, have gotten burned on that. And it created a kind of negative connotation for leads in some cases. Whereas pay-per-call, it's so different because you're just answering the phone. And if it's not a legitimate customer looking for a service that your service category typically provides, then you don't have to pay for it. So the risk is actually quite low, even though the price for a call is higher than it would be for like some random lead. Again, like we talked about the value, that return on investment is what matters the most. And you can control how much you spend. So it's not like it just starts running away from you. But I do think that the ones who have been with us for, say, 3 months, they really start to get it because they see the real result. And then I think the next step that we can offer them is suggestions about maybe how they can expand their business, because we see in our data, maybe there's adjacent service areas that they haven't expanded into where we see limited competition potentially. And we could point to them and say, hey, look, have you thought about this part of Austin or San Diego? And maybe why don't you put a little bit of your marketing budget towards this and see how it goes? And then as long as they keep up with answering the phone correctly and all that, they will see results.
Right. And in terms of pay-per-call, do you guys use this yourselves
To like find customers?
to find customers? Yeah.
No, because these are people who it's a little bit longer than, someone needing like a plumber to come on site or a remodeling person. So it's really about these like professional settings, whether it's an online setting where someone is, let's say you are a plumbing company and you're like, how do I increase my marketing effectiveness? And you're searching online, right? You're not going to call like the first number that you see, but what you will do is start to educate yourself. And I think that's the space that we want to be in. And similarly, these are companies that are present in these conventions. And that's an amazing moment for us to actually be face to face. And we've seen a lot of success in those areas. And then we do some outbound for sure, because we can find them easier than they could find us. And then we can provide some context around, hey, this is something that you should be interested in if you want to grow your business. And most everybody wants to grow their business. And it kind of spans like economic cycles as well, because sometimes people get scared about, well, like, I don't know how customers are going to spend and maybe I should cut back on spending. But it's the ones who actually do the opposite that can be more successful, because they can take market share from their competitors.
So clearly you guys have a really prominent presence when it comes to thought leadership. You mentioned the blog, you mentioned the social media. In terms of outbound, how does that perform usually?
I mean, especially the research papers and the white papers, I think they perform really well just because it's proprietary information. It's not available anywhere else. And I think the depth that those can go to is especially to the ideal client. I mean, if you're just starting out and you have, a couple of people in a plumbing company, we may not be the best fit for you. Right. But somebody who is growing their business and has their sights set on something bigger, this is where they need to understand more about how to generate good quality customers. And they're the ones who are really interested in the stuff that we spend a lot of time building that we give away for free too. Right. So, I mean, from our perspective, it's like the more good educated clients there are, we're going to win some of them. And we're happy to compete with anyone else that's trying to do pay-per-call. Like, good luck to you. We've been doing it for a long time. And it's not an easy place or a space to play in. I think a lot of the people who were doing forms only before, they're like, oh, I'm just going to jump into pay-per-call. And what really is going to end up happening is they're going to realize they actually need us to help them do it. It's just not that easy to generate all the technology and the marketplace and everything. But we're able to help those types of clients too, like white label things or whatever. I think giving away thoughtful and well-researched content is always going to have good results.
So in terms of what's going on right now, I feel like I have a really solid understanding of what you guys do. What about the industry itself? What are you seeing? What are some trends you're seeing? What are some challenges you're seeing right now?
Yeah, I think a lot of the challenges are separating quality from quantity. For us, we want both, obviously. We want as many leads as possible because we have a ton of buyers ready to buy leads. So it's never a shortage of buyers, really. But generating enough high quality leads is a challenge. And part of it is because the marketplace is so fractured and there's so many different players in it, it's hard to keep tabs on who's doing what. So that's why the relationships that you create matter so much. And once we start working with a really quality affiliate, let's say, or a really quality buyer, we want to help them expand. And that's where the partnership part comes in. So I think we're getting around the challenge of too much noise in the system by doing the diligent work to find those proper, well-run companies that we can partner with. And we'd rather do fewer of those and focus on them than worry about casting a super wide net. And I see a lot of people in the space trying too hard to just get numbers to work, but then they don't stick around, like the amount of churn that happens afterwards. So we'd rather focus on quality. And it's not that we haven't been growing, because we've been one of the fastest growing companies for a long time now, but doing it sustainably and scalably is really hard. And that comes down to every single person on your team. And we're a small company, but everything that everyone does in our company matters. And it's cool when we do our all hands meetings. It's very transparent and everyone gets to see exactly how the company is doing. And I think the story that we're trying to share as leaders is every person in the company matters. What you're doing today is going to have an impact on this entire company in the coming months and years. So that challenge of being able to scale without losing the humanness, that's something I think every fast-growing company can relate to. So we try to do it by holding on to our core values and not just speaking them, but really trying to live them. And that's a practice. Like, we're going to fail at it a bunch, but really committing to your company culture matters a lot, because then you're hiring and retaining really good quality talent who actually cares and wants to stay here for years and grow with the company. So we try to elevate people in the company and give them opportunity. And I think that's a challenge that I see all the time in the corporate space, that people talk the talk about culture and then don't do it. And it doesn't give you a passion to wake up and do something with your friends when it's that feeling of, oh, I'm just working here, I'm punching in, punching out. Like, that's not what we want. So I think culture is one of the biggest things, that it's a challenge and a solution at the same time.
Right. So it seems like you guys are focusing a lot internally right now, right? You're really just focusing on dialing in quality, optimizing all of your systems, and just making sure that inside the company, everything's the best that it can be, right? And
yeah, and it's a nonstop work in progress, because when you're growing really fast, you're getting pulled in a lot of different directions, and every one of us has to wear a lot of hats. So how do you compartmentalize that? And for me, like, systems and processes have always just been something that I didn't realize that not everyone was naturally good at, because when I started my company, it was exactly the same situation where I was working a ton and working with all these different clients. So how do you keep them separated? How do you do all the things and not get confused about who needs what? So I just was forced into learning how to make systems for myself that keep me on track. And especially with creative things, whenever there's a UX problem, or I'm thinking about a design solution to something, you want that immediate insight and solution to come, but it doesn't. And now you've got a kind of creative block. So how do you unblock yourself? And so I've got systems for that. And sometimes it is just, I need to walk away and go surfing. And then I'll be like sitting there just in between sets of the waves. And then like, I'm just playing with like moving things around in my head, and then the solution comes. And it's when usually I try to remove the desire for the solution to happen immediately that it actually comes faster. But yeah, like, obviously we're also a remote team. So learning how different people work together, some people really thrive in a remote environment and others like see that as a challenge. And we have lots of project management systems and processes to help us communicate with each other so that we make fewer mistakes. And it's basically a force multiplier. So the more efficient and more organized you are, the more likely it is that you're going to generate high quality product and not have to redo it. So our engineering teams, our product teams, our marketing teams, everyone's got to be in sync. And that's a huge challenge. But we've been getting better and better and better at it. And I think it's just like forever work in progress.
so would you say that that's one of your biggest goals?
Yeah, because then the work that you do, or each minute of work that you do, has a greater impact. And I think that it also makes people more satisfied overall, because you see that instead of confusion, you're just kind of humming along. And I think the feeling at the end of the day is one of satisfaction rather than one of confusion. So talked about delight earlier on. To me, it's a delightful experience to wrap my day and be like, damn, we did a lot today. And I know exactly where this week is going. Like, I feel steady and good. And I think project management processes and tools are just a core part of that. I don't know what I would do without those things.
You sound really passionate about it. I say that like genuine. You've got
It's kind of a dry subject, but man, it
Yeah.
makes your whole life better. And it just makes you more effective.
So you personally, in the next 6 to 12 months, with what you're doing with systems, processes, what are your biggest goals? What are you trying to achieve? What are you trying to do for the company?
I think for me, it's being able to output software and technology solutions that really enhance our clients' experience. And the reason I say that is because we are transitioning into this big enterprise space. That's a whole different level of customer and what they need and what types of solutions we can offer them. Pretty much a blank slate. And our technology is very nimble and flexible, but at the same time, we have limited resources. So what I'm interested in is finding these few big case studies that we can execute something different than we've done before. And it's still like the underlying technology is basically the same, but what we're doing is going to be a totally different output. So I think it's really interesting to be able to use all your past experience to then elevate into some unique new use case that we've never done before. So it's really interesting and kind of scary at the same time. But I feel like I trust our entire team and I know that everyone's got each other's backs. So that makes me a lot more confident about doing whatever. But yeah, for me personally, I think in the next 6 to 12 months, it's about being able to execute a couple of brand new, big kind of things and feel like, man, because we're organized, because we have our shit together, we were able to execute that. And like, look how cool that was. Whereas maybe 5 years ago, we would have been too scared to do it.
And going into that, what's something that you're trying to introduce? What's something that you're trying to change to adapt to that? Because obviously this is a much bigger type of client that you're targeting now.
Yes. Yeah. And I think in a way, they have their own constraints. And I think working within constraints is actually a really very creative place to be. So it's almost like they limit the number of paints you can have, but then they're like, I want a mural, not just like a painting. And you're like, oh shit, okay. And so I think that how you figure out what it is that you're going to build and making sure that the scaffolding under all of it is very flexible and nimble, that's going to be a big challenge and something that I feel like we're all ready to tackle. Because at the end of the day, let's say you kind of miscommunicate or you are building a solution that's a little bit too restrictive, and then the customer wants to pivot in a different direction, or maybe they're expanding what they initially thought they were going to do with you, but now you've locked yourself into a system that's too rigid. So building things in a very flexible way is one of those things that I think we've learned to always keep in the forefront of our mind. And that's going to be a big focus, I think, for the next handful of big projects is how do we create a solution that underneath it all can flex and move and be able to answer these different needs without having to reinvent stuff and without reworking all the time. Because we just wouldn't be able to do as much work if we were rigid.
Right. All right. Well, thank you. You brought a lot of unique perspective onto here. I personally was not expecting to get on somebody from, Austin before the Berlin Wall. Oh, I like awesome.
Cool.
And
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks for hosting this conversation.
As we end today's episode of Making Martech, we'd like to thank all our listeners. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to share this and subscribe to our show so you don't miss the next one. I'm your host, Himnish Jindal, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode.